Very few games make me touch my nipples out of sheer pleasure, and yes, this is the best starting quote for a video ever done in sim racing. And yes, it is a figure of speech. Anyways, that's Assetto Corsa Rally for you, a game that seems to want to be Richard Burns' Rally, and more than that, and that makes me really happy. Before going there, 505 Games provided the key for this video, and as always, I say what I want. Like I want to say thank you to all the viewers, members and subscribers for making this possible. I'm trying to get 100,000 subscribers, and all help is appreciated. Thank you. Rallying in sim racing is in a really strange state. There's really 2 or 3 main sims out there. Richard Burns, which is essentially the platform being used for the last 20 and something years. Then Dirt Rally 1 and 2. These last 2, even today, are well loved for their mix of fidelity and being approachable. Then EA WRC came out a couple of years back. I thought it had that dirt feeling, after all it was made by the same people. It did a lot of things right, but the rallying community didn't rally around it very well. Assetto Corsa Rally has then a lot of big shoes to fill and landmines to avoid. It needs to be stated, though, that even though this is an Assetto Corsa game with a Kuno's physics engine, it is not being developed by Kuno's, but rather Supernova Studios, an Italian team that has experience in racing games like Colin McRae and Dirt Rally, and they say 10 years developing in Unreal Engine, which is a good thing because this is running on Unreal Engine 5, and we all know what can happen with Unreal Engine 5 in racing games, don't we? Therefore, you don't need to worry about that the development of AC Rally is going to slow down the development of Assetto Corsa Evo, rest assured. The prices for early access are actually quite compelling. It's €30, $30 or £25 for the early access. The early access will come with 10 cars at launch from multiple eras and types, 2 rallies with 2 different stages in various versions. The stages can be run through the day or night, and there's also weather. More content will be added as time progresses up until the early access finish. We need to talk also about the minimum requirements. It's an Intel 1070K or a Ryzen 3600X with a 2080, and a recommended requirements of a 12600K or a Ryzen 5600 with a 37 or a 16 gig RX 1600. Well, in my experience, I don't know about this one, Chief. I think there's a lot in this game that could be used in Evo as lessons on how to do things, and let's start with that, with all the important user interface. At least all important for me. You'll find that this user interface is very similar to Assetto Corsa Evo, boxes, color, typefaces, and alike. However, for some reason, Supernova Studios actually made a usable, simpler version of it. It is very straightforward, easy to use, and easy to understand with very little clutter in the way. I do know that you are looking at the car right now. We'll leave the graphics talk to the end, but it's obvious how good it looks, isn't it? There's really a lot of love being put here. The stories of rallying, the engineering behind the hull, the design, it's all parts for the love of the automotive, something that Kuno's I think does very well, and Supernova Studios is matching their energy, if not superseding them, because after all they can laser focus. We really got to love this. Maybe there will be a dashboard in the future with some epic rally moments like the Carlos Sainz losing the World Championship because the car blew 800 meters from the finish line kind of stuff. You know, it's just a thought, and I thought that I would also like to see more Toyota Classic Rally cars because these seem to be absent, and, you know, Corolla, my beloved. Let's go to content then. There's just a few things to do. After all, it's early access. We have championships, some training sessions, free rally, time trial. At this stage, really not that much, though with all of the cars, it's quite interesting, can do pretty much a lot of things. As an early access, it brings a hodgepodge of multiple racing groups under very different rule sets and very different powertrains, so we get to crash in very many ways, in very many speeds. All cars look phenomenal inside and out, and they drive very different as well. It's clear how much time they actually spent on the title perfecting every little stone and pebble and bolt and nut. I didn't know if the segue here would be the graphics or physics and force feedback, but let's leave the eye candy to the end, as for a lot of users, the driving is first and foremost the most important thing. I'll try to sum up what I've been feeling and experiencing. You get the picture. This is for me a truly next-gen simulator in many, many ways. For road cars, you know, actual road cars, not grand tours, you know, this is the best driving sim in the market in my very humble and probably ignorant opinion. It's very hard to see in sim racing cars that both feel heavy with momentum and actually nimble at the same time. The suspension in this game has movement, it works elegantly in a convincing way over the different types of surfaces and conditions. You can see the suspension moving, trying to compensate for unevenness whenever it can, unless you hit something and you go flying in the air. In the same way, you can't just slam your brake or slam your throttle and expect it to work, because differentials in this game need to be managed. You need to understand what they're doing. Otherwise, there's just slip or lock depending on what the car has or depending how the differentials are set up. And this was made evidently true with the first ride I have done, not knowing really what to expect. So you have the 208 Rally 4, basically a French shitbox made rally car with a 1.2 turbo engine doing like over 200 ponies in a front wheel drive configuration. So I get to my first 3 right corner and I crash with understeer, as I was expecting the power out and the diff to sort me out. Not here. The modeled self-locking diff said I had other plans with me because I went so hard on it, and that included a date with the ditch. I literally got dumped by racing him, and that is absolute bliss. Instantly, I got the first taste of what was to come and the first real indication that this is reminding me how a front-wheel drive car does drive. How my own hot hatch shitbox actually has some of the same characteristics when pushed. When I reattached my head from sim racing into, okay, what should I really do in reality, I started to understand the logic that AC Rally wants me to have, and it starts to click, and you start pushing harder and harder until you go to the ditch again, because rallies and ditches, of course, they go together hand in hand. And speaking of that, there is a damage system in the game where every panel gets battered. It seems to me that at this point it's still very much in early stages though. If you believe the four-wheel drives will be any different, well, they are not. They are not get-out-of-jail-free cars as well. You really do need to prime the angle by getting the cars angle ready, both in entry and exit, and coming out of those corners you do need to feather the throttle. It is incredible to see how some of these drivers had to do in order to control these beasts, especially the rear-wheel driven ones, going full speed in places where there's really no room for error. They had balls of steel and incredible skill. From the handling of the Mini going to the absolutely bonkers handling of the Stratos or the 037 and even the modern WRC, there's so much attention to detail in every single component of the car that it says and feels for me that it does feel truly next gen. What is missing for me is a little more danger with the weather. It doesn't feel as dramatic, and there's not a lot of difference between weather grip and dry grip at the moment. So that's really the thing for me. The physics are done to a point where it feels, for the first time in my experience, that it's not about being realistic and then you have some sort of abstraction on top of it that was sim racing-ized, but rather something that actually flies really close to the face of driving a rally. This is something new. The force feedback feels natural. It's not over the top in terms of effects. It tries to emulate steering racks with some added effects for immersion, but I would recommend you that you run this force feedback with a healthy amount of dampening, as the game doesn't seem to give much in that way. But for those of you who are on Fanatec gear, go to the auto settings, because for me they seem to work rather well. If the cars are really well modeled, so do the tracks, because the tracks are laser scanned to a fault. All 33 kilometers of the track are superbly represented. We're talking about small objects, pebbles, rocks, landslides, logs, side-ride objects, the marshals, and even the odd spectator trying to get ran over by you when you go full speed. It's absurd how good it looks, how excellent the track feel is, the rally feel really, and how it gels so well with the driving. And the sounds are guttural, even if some of them seem to be quite very similar in some ways. And the game actually goes well, very, very well together. And the bass notes are absolutely fantastic. The tracks are fully voiced Dirt Rally 1 style, which in my opinion are some of the best ever done in sim racing or rally racing until ACR comes in. The details are so convincing that when you go to the inside view, the co-driver turns the pages as he narrates over the bass notes. It's absolutely mental. The graphical fidelity is in another level altogether, and I'll be saying next gen again because it does feel like next gen. The foliage and the trees, for example, it reminds me of the reaction I had to Crysis back in the day, or more recently to Gray Zone Warfare, which is also running in Unreal Engine 5. Speaking of that, Unreal Engine 5 has been a weird implementation all around. Doesn't mean if it's just sim racing, and even though the game looks excellent, Assetto Corsa Rally does have some of the same graphical issues as other Unreal Engine 5 games have, including range port, but in this case in very different ways though. ACR runs heavy, and I do mean really, really heavy. With my system, I'm getting at 1440p with mixed options around 60 or to 70 FPS, frame gen to 120, which is worse than Rensport. But unlike Rensport, this game actually looks good at 1440p. The foliage looks great, the distances look great, the models look fantastic. And speaking of that, I think this is the closest we have to Gran Turismo 7 PC in terms of reflections, in terms of raw quality being delivered, and in my opinion, it surpasses Gran Turismo 7 in that. Though, it must be said, and everybody has to admit this, Gran Turismo 7 is truly an optimized title, something that Unreal Engine 5 can't do because Unreal Engine 5 will do some Unreal Engineering. I've tried the game in 4K, I wish I could have tried it in a decent way, but it runs even heavier than 1440p. I get maybe 40 to 50 FPS, which is frame gen to about 80 to 100 if I'm lucky. In replays, as you can see right now from in front of you, there's a lot of temporal anti-aliasing, lots of visual bugs that this engine is known to give, and ACR doesn't really get out of. As PC sim racing goes, I don't think there's a title out there that touches AC Rally. Even the color correction is on point. The graphical aspects of this are once again truly next gen, but that comes at the price. The last point I want to raise is actually about modding, or really not knowing if modding is coming about. I have asked around, and modding is still right now very much in the air. It's not going to become a thing under early access, but if, and this is a big if, it becomes a thing, it only happens past 1.0. But we need it. The thing is, the handling of this game feels so natural. The driving is such pure bliss that it did remind me of my times when I started doing Toge and Assetto Corsa. And this platform gave me a thought of, oh, holy shit, imagine if I was doing A86 and acting a downhill in this system. I understand if they don't do it or prioritize it, however, it's kind of a wasted opportunity if they don't do it, because a lion's share of the longevity of Richard Burns, and even in Assetto Corsa, which is still selling games in this day, is definitely the modding. So
do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it!
For an early access title, Assetto Corsa Rally really blew my expectations. Evo, admittedly, is still in a very weird place, but this game knows what it wants, and it wants you to rip through the stages at blazing speeds. It has a heart, love of racing, and in my opinion, it's that good. But remember, even if it does look good, and it does, Unreal Engine 5 is really, really heavy.